Hi Worldshakers, it's Miss Fredalyn, the Children's Director. This week we have a special series that we're going to start off on. It's all about custom creation. It's about discovering who you are so that you can go out there and make a difference. But before we go into lesson, do you know what time it is? That's right, it's time for worship. What's your favorite cookie? Mine is chocolate chip and walnuts. There's so many different types of cookies, and everyone has their favorite one. Did you know that we're similar to cookies? Just like there's so many different types, whether they're sprinkles, pumpkin spice, or oatmeal, right? We're different too. We have different personalities, we have different looks, we have different languages, and we live all across the world. But no matter how different we are, God loves us exactly the same. Let's tune into the story and learn more about our Creator. Do you know who our Creator is?
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. Now, for an amazing story, inspired by the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verses 26 through 28.
In the beginning, God took nothing and made everything. From darkness, God called out light.
God poured out waters and stretched the sky far overhead like an unpainted canvas. He shaped dry land and canyons and great mountain ranges, and then decked them out with trees and vines and plants of every kind. God spun the moon and sun and stars and planets out into space, and then He filled the oceans with fish and the sky with birds. God thought up an amazing variety of animals to crawl and hop and race over the earth.
All of this was incredible, unbelievable, the most artistic show of power ever. God made complex atoms and cells smaller than the eye can see, all the way up to vast spaces stretching across the universe farther than we can imagine. And yet, all of this was just a warm-up to God's most spectacular creation, people. People. It's true. We're made of the same atoms and cells and elements as rocks and plants and animals. But unlike anything else in God's creation, we are made in God's image. Then God said,
"Let us make human beings so that they are like us. Let them rule over the fish in the seas and the birds in the sky. Let them rule over the livestock and all the wild animals. And let them rule over all the creatures that move along the ground."
So God created human beings in His own likeness. He created them to be like Himself. He created them as male and female. You are made in God's image. Now, that does not mean God shares your eye color, or your freckles, or even your quirky smile. But it does mean that you were designed for God to shine through you. You were made to show the world God's love, God's grace and mercy, God's joy, God's peace, God's kindness, God's wisdom. You and every person you'll ever meet are of infinite value because you're made in the image of God. And here's what's even more amazing. God didn't design us to turn into a bunch of little robots who look and act the same when we follow Him. Instead, the more time you spend with God, asking Him to transform your thoughts and words and choices, the more you become uniquely you. As you follow Jesus and reflect God's light more clearly, you'll be able to do the things that God has designed for you and no one else. So, next time you look in the mirror, remember, you're looking at the image of God, and no one in this world can reflect Him just the way you do.
When God created the world, He created the best thing last, people. Even if we're different, the way we look, the way we think, the way we behave, we're still all the same. We're the same because we're created by God's special gifts. He gave you His special gifts so that you can make a difference into the world. That gift may be being kind, showing His love, reflecting His love. Maybe you're smart because you were created by a smart God. Maybe you're patient as God is patient with us. Regardless of what combination of gifts you have, God created you in His image. Here's this month's monthly verse. How you made me is amazing and wonderful. I praise you for that. What you have done is wonderful. I know that very well. Psalm 139, verse 14.